Chinese billionaire stopped in his tracks when Janitor's daughter spoke this shocking truth. The grand ballroom inside the luxurious hotel shimmered with golden lights, illuminating the faces of the elite, each one glistening with wealth and hidden secrets. In the center, a Chinese billionaire named Mr. Wei, known for his ruthless ambition and cold demeanor, was the star of the night. He stood there, flaunting his power, as guests whispered tales of his latest conquests, but nothing could prepare him for what was about to unfold. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. A janitor's daughter, a seemingly invisible figure in the sea of extravagance, stepped forward. Her worn-out sneakers crunched softly against the marble floor. As she drew near, her heart raced, the weight of the moment gripping her with an icy fist. Her voice, carried by desperation, cut through the plush laughter, every word trembled with raw emotion. "You think your money can buy happiness? It can't." The room fell silent, shock plastered across faces. Eyes widened, breaths hitched as the truth of her words echoed in the charged air. Just a moment ago, this gathering of affluent elites felt untouchable, but this girl shattered their gilded dreams with her simple proclamation. She glanced around, blood pounding in her ears. How dare she? Murmurs swelled through the crowd like a rising tide, confusion and anger bubbling beneath the surface. Something tugged at Mr. Wei's gut, a peculiar mix of fear and curiosity. What did she know that could possibly threaten his empire? As tension crackled like static electricity, a man in a tuxedo leaned towards another. Who does she think she is? Eyes darted around, seeking answers, and the whispers twisted into daggers aimed at the girl. She felt their judgment, their collective disapproval, like a physical weight, but she stood there unyielding, adamant in her truth. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Mr. Wei's imposing figure shifted slightly. The chandelier above flickered with a life of its own. He was taken aback, but curiosity ignited a fire in his chest. What else did she know? Could she unravel the hidden truths he so desperately tried to bury? The crowd became palpable, the silence humming with questions. Wouldn't they want to hear more? The eyes of the elite bore into her, as if waiting for her next move. And, just like that, she felt a strange thrill, a spark of hope amidst the storm of power looming over her. But then, something shifted in the shadows behind Mr. Wei. A flicker of movement, a figure lurking, a mystery yet to unfold. The tension in the room thickened, hearts raced, and minds raced even faster. The girl took a deep breath, ready to unleash the truth she carried. What she was about to reveal could change everything, but would it shatter the world of the untouchable billionaire forever? The anticipation, heavy as a freight train, teetered on the edge of chaos, leaving everyone breathless, captivated, and longing for more. The crowd held its breath, the air electric with anticipation. The girl's heart thundered in her chest as she felt the weight of countless gazes bearing down on her. Each pair of eyes glowered with disbelief, curiosity, and barely veiled contempt. The sheer force of expectation wrapped around her like chains, ready to either propel her forward or drag her down. What do you know? Mr. Wei's voice sliced through the silence, cold and authoritative. His eyes narrowed, searching her face for any sign of weakness. More than you think, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. You think wealth protects you? That it can buy off your demons? A ripple of surprise surged through the room. Eyes darted between the billionaire and the girl, intrigued, thrilled at the thought of the powerful man being challenged. It was forbidden, exhilarating. She sensed a chance, an opportunity to strike a blow against the fortress of wealth that stood before her. Wei's jaw clenched, his expression darkening. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he warned, his words a low hiss. The tension curled in the air like smoke, thickening as the crowd leaned in closer. But the girl pressed on, her resolve hardening like steel. She could feel the ghosts of her past rising up, the memories of late-night conversations with her father echoing in her mind. "I know you're hiding something," she shot back, eyes blazing with determination. "You think you can hide behind money and power? But what happens when it's all gone, when you're left all alone?" Gasps erupted from the audience, shock mingling with disbelief. Guests exchanged glances. Who was this girl? What did she really know? The whispers now morphed into gasps of fascination and dread, stories starting to spiral like wildfire. Behind Mr. Wei, the shadow shifted again, more substantial this time. The figure stepped forward, half covered in darkness, revealing a familiar face beneath the layered chaos. It was an old friend of Mr. Wei, someone who had known him in the rise of his empire. Anxiety twisted in the atmosphere, and a chill ran down the girl's spine. It felt like she was standing on the precipice of an uncharted abyss, the ground crumbling beneath her feet. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," the newcomer said, his voice smooth but laced with warning. "You don't want to unleash the past." The billionaire's eyes flickered with something between recognition and fear. The crowd sensed the impending collision of secrets and lies, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. "Is that a threat?" she challenged, refusing to yield to the rising panic inside her. "No, it's a reality. There are things in this world that money can't protect you from." The man's gaze shifted, circling the ballroom like a predator sizing up its prey. As reality settled in, the room erupted again, some guests recoiling, others straining to hear every word. The girl's pulse quickened. She hadn't expected this twist, but it fueled her fire. "Secrets, you have them, and I will expose them." Her voice rang with fierce conviction, grounding her. And just like that, the atmosphere unraveled into a spiral of questions, intrigue, and fear. Mr. Wei was no longer the untouchable kingpin. The girl had become a storm he hadn't prepared for, but what had she stumbled upon? Could unveiling the truth free her from the shadows of her life, or was she merely stepping deeper into a labyrinth of danger? The crowd leaned in, hungry for answers and terrified of what would happen next. The chandelier flickered ominously as the past began to seep into the present, and the girl wondered if she had ignited a fire she couldn't control. What lay on the other side of this flashpoint? With her heart racing, she took a cautious step forward, ready to unmask the truth, unaware of the inevitable choices that loomed ahead. Would revealing Mr. Wei's secrets save her or doom her forever? The answers were murky, and the game was only just beginning. The tension in the room thickened, palpable like a fog that refused to lift. The crowd hung on every word, electric whispers dancing through the air. The girl's heart drummed in her chest, each beat urging her onward, beyond the threshold of fear. Wei stared at her, his expression hardening, but she caught a flicker of uncertainty behind his cool facade. "You think you know me?" he spat, words dripping with disdain. "You're just a girl playing in a grown-up's game." The crowd seemed to swell, pressing against each other, anticipation hanging like a noose. The weight of their expectations shifted on her shoulders, a burden and a weapon all at once. "It's not a game to me," she shot back, her voice rising slightly above the murmur. "You play with lives, with secrets that ruin people. What's hiding in the shadows of your grand empire? What will it cost you to keep it concealed?" Gasps rippled through the guests, their expressions flitting from shock to fascination. The familiar face, the newly emerged figure, took a step closer. "This isn't the right path," he said, his tone now laced with urgency. "Trust me, girl, you're treading on dangerous ground." She could feel her skin prickling, her instincts telling her to retreat, but there was no turning back now. No voice of reason could convince her to step aside. "I know there are things you've done," she pressed, determination morphing into a fierce resolve. And I am not afraid of the truth. From the corner, someone coughed softly, breaking the silence. A man in a gray suit shifted nervously, eyes darting from the girl to Mr. Wei, his fear almost tangible. "She's right," he murmured. "There are whispers, things we all know but don't speak of." The mood in the room shifted again, unraveling as the facade began to crack. The girl could almost feel the tension splintering, an unsteady foundation beneath the glitter and wealth. Laughter had died now, replaced by uncertainty and dread. Wei's jaw tightened, and she swore she could see a flicker of rage in his eyes. "You're playing with fire," he warned, though the threat sounded hollow. "And fire burns." Her mind raced. Did she have the power to send sparks flying? Maybe, but your fortress isn't as invincible as you think. The challenge echoed in the space, bold and haunting. And just then, the lights flickered again, plunging the room into near darkness. A gasp echoed as the crowd shifted, and she felt a pair of hands grip her arm, yanking her backward. Panic surged through her. "What are you doing?" she shouted. The familiar face was there again, its owner pulling her behind him protectively. "We have to get away from him," he warned, urgency coloring his voice. "He won't take this lying down." The commotion sent chills racing down her spine. All around, voices were raising in alarm, the crowd chaotic, whispers swirling like flies. Each moment felt surreal, as if a part of her was floating above the scene, watching from a distance. And then, a gunshot shattered the air, sharp and unforgiving. People screamed, chaos erupted, and for a fleeting moment, time stood still. The girl's breath hitched in her throat, the sound reverberating like a death knell. Mr. Wei's face contorted with fury as he turned towards the source of the gunfire. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the flickering chandelier, emotions potent, and in that second, everything seemed to pivot. "Don't move," the voice commanded, drenched in authority and laced with danger. The girl felt her heart race as she realized the stakes had shifted dramatically. She hadn't just stumbled onto buried secrets, she had unearthed a wicked web of betrayal. She could either run, find safety, or stand her ground and fight for the truth, whatever it might cost her. Her hands trembled at her sides as fear clashed with resolve. In that ultimate moment, she understood one thing: the truth was about to unleash a storm. Would she dare to stand firm, or would she be swept away in the chaos? Fate loomed ahead, and now she had to decide. Would she uncover the past, a hidden truth swirling in darkness, or would she become just another casualty in a game far beyond her control? The air crackled with danger as the girl faced the towering figure of Mr. Wei, whose eyes blazed like embers. Each second stretched into eternity. The figure silhouetted against the chandelier shifted, a weapon braced in hand. "Get down!" he shouted, his voice a stark contrast to the gasps filling the room, desperation echoing with authority. The crowd exploded into panic. Chairs scraped violently across the floor, echoing the frantic beating of her heart. Instinctively, the girl ducked behind the man who had pulled her to safety, her mind racing. She had ignited something fierce. "Stay close," he urged, his breath hot with urgency as he backed toward the exit, urging her to move. She could still hear the chaos escalating, the sounds of heels clattering, voices crying out for help. Her eyes flitted to Mr. Wei, who stood frozen as if unprepared for this sudden upheaval. "Why are you doing this?" she screamed, fear drowning out reason. The words were meant for Mr. Wei, but the truth was, she was asking herself. What had she uncovered? The shadows surrounding his empire felt darker now, laden with unknown threats. The gunman lowered his weapon, eyes scanning the crowd with lethal precision. "We're not the enemy," he barked, attempting to rein in the crowd's fraying nerves. "This is about survival. We need to leave now." With each passing moment, tension coiled tighter inside her. She pushed back the urge to flee, facing the chaos head-on. Truth must prevail. She yelled. A foolish thought, perhaps, but in that moment, it didn't seem foolish at all. The shout drew attention, silence halting the panicked cries, and eyes turned her way. Could she really be the catalyst for change? Was she ready for this? The weight of a choice fell squarely on her shoulders, heavier than the chaos that surrounded them. "Girl, listen." The familiar face pleaded, stepping closer, his brow moist with tension. "This isn't what you think. You need to trust me and follow. Mr. Wei won't hesitate to wipe you off the board." For a heartbeat, she searched his eyes. There it was again, a flicker of fear mixed with sincerity. "Why should I trust anyone in this place?" she challenged. "They're all pieces of the same game. Because you're more important than you realize." He snapped back, exasperation cutting through the noise. "We can expose him, together. But we have to move now." As the gunman barked out commands, her thoughts spiraled. Could she truly expose Mr. Wei? Was risking her life worth the truth? The walls felt like they were closing in, shadows dancing, as she weighed her options. Suddenly, the lights flickered once more, urging the panic to return. The crowd screamed, some clamoring to the exits, while others instinctively shielded their faces. "Get out if you want," Mr. Wei shouted, a burning fury in his voice. "But it won't end well for you." In that moment, the girl's heart surged with defiance. "You're wrong," she shouted back, finding strength. "The truth will find a way. It will devour everything, you included." A window of opportunity opened as a doorway flung itself ajar in the back. "This way," the familiar face shouted, motioning for her to follow him. Without thinking, she grabbed his arm, adrenaline guiding her. They surged toward the door, weaving between bodies, desperate for escape. But the chaos simmered, the thick tension still crackling in the air. Just as they burst into the corridor, a loud scream pierced the din, chilling her bones. Her heart sank as she turned back and found Mr. Wei with a wild look, his eyes locked onto her. "You'll regret this moment," he roared, a promise laced with threat. As they raced down the hall, the echo of his voice followed them, haunting like a specter. The girl realized suddenly that a storm had been unleashed, and there was no turning back. The truth would come at a cost she could not yet fathom. With no clear path laid ahead, she understood that the real battle was just beginning. Would they uncover the Empire's buried secrets, or would they become lost to the shadows? She could sense the storm gathering and knew one thing. The stakes were about to get much higher. But as the exit loomed ahead, a hidden force flickered just out of sight, waiting to strike. Panting and wide-eyed, the girl raced down the corridor, her heart pounding like a wild drum in her chest. The chilling promise of Mr. Wei echoed in her mind, twisting like a knife. "You'll regret this moment." How could she shake off the fear when it felt so palpable, creeping along her skin like frostbite? "Keep moving," the man beside her ordered, urgency lacing his tone. His grip on her arm was firm, almost protective, but she could sense the uncertainty beneath. They dodged through the chaos, skirting around frantic figures, bodies bumping against one another, a tide of panic swelling back towards the thrumming heart of the crisis. What was that sound? The dull thud of footsteps behind them, heavy and purposeful. Her pulse quickened further. "They're coming," she cried, anxiety knotting her stomach. She risked a glance over her shoulder and saw two of Mr. Wei's men, their faces set like stone, moving quickly through the throng. "Stay low," he yelled, pushing her toward a side door that seemed to appear out of nowhere. They stumbled through it just as the footsteps grew louder, swallowing the chaotic noises of the party behind them. The door crashed shut, leaving darkness swallowing the spaces behind them. They entered a small stairwell, dimly lit and stale with age. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. "What now?" she muttered, fear creeping into her voice. She glanced at him, searching for answers that seemed just as lost as they were. Up, he commanded, pointing toward the stairs leading to the upper floors. We need to figure out our next move. If we don't, we're not safe anywhere. What do you mean? Her voice trembled, uncertainty creeping in, battling the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. What does he want with me? Control, he replied, his face set with grim determination. You don't know the power of what you've uncovered. Mr. Wei doesn't want the truth out. He's built his empire on lies, and you've threatened that foundation. We have to find evidence, something that proves his corruption. But first, we need to get to a safe place far from here. They continued to ascend the stairs, each step echoing in the confined space. The lower floor's chaos felt miles away, yet the fear didn't subside. There was a secret lurking, thick enough to cut through the darkness, and she felt it, a nagging sense that the truth wasn't merely waiting to be uncovered but hiding in the shadows. When they reached the top, a narrow, dim hallway greeted them. He pressed against the wall, peering around the corner. She held her breath, waiting for a sign that it was clear. It's quiet, he breathed out, a note of hope threading through his voice. Before they could take another step, a door slammed somewhere down the hall. The sound sped up their heartbeats like a gunshot, igniting suspense. Did you hear that? She whispered, tension knotting her throat. Panic clawed at the edges of her mind, urging her to run. Suddenly, she felt it, a pulse of energy, a chill that swept through the air, distinct from the adrenaline that had fueled them moments before. Something's wrong, she murmured, eyes darting about vigilantly. The sensation was too familiar, like a storm warning before a cataclysmic event. In that heartbeat, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A shadow slipping silently in the darkness, watching, waiting. It paralyzed her, pure dread blocking her instincts. We need to go now, he urged, grabbing her hand, unleashing the paralysis in her limbs. They dashed down the hall, but as they rounded a corner, the shadow loomed larger, revealing a figure stepping into the faint light. It was another man, his features obscured but intent palpable. Stop right there, he yelled, the authority in his voice jolted them to a halt, heart racing. The girl felt the weight of her choices crash over her. Was the truth worth this fight? She met the stranger's gaze, and in that moment, realization dawned, this was just the beginning. Before she could respond, everything shifted. The door behind them burst open, and with it, an explosion of sound and light as the storm. Fully unleashed, with nowhere to go, was this the end or the chance she'd been waiting for? The figure stood before them, a solid form in the dim light, his stance exuding authority. The uncertainty in the girl's heart collided with an urgent need for survival. She barely breathed, caught between dread and the flickering light of defiance. What do you want? She spat, bravely holding her ground. The man shifted slightly, revealing a hint of recognition in his eyes. I'm not with him. I'm trying to help, he said, his tone softer, almost pleading. Help? You work for Wei? The words hung in the air, thick with suspicion. No, I work against him, he replied quickly. I know what he's planning. You might be the key to stopping him. Her stomach twisted, suspicion battling instinct. And why should I trust you? Because he will hunt you down, and I can get you somewhere safe, but we have to move. His gaze drifted past them, toward the stairs, where the ominous sounds of footfalls grew louder, closer. Now. Without waiting for a response, he turned and took a few hurried steps, beckoning them forward. The man beside her glanced at her, weighing their options. It's risky, he muttered under his breath. Staying here is the real risk, she insisted, adrenaline giving her resolve a boost. She plunged forward, following the stranger. They dashed down the deserted hallway, the air thick with tension. Shadows flickered against the walls and the pounding of footsteps echoed like a drumbeat, closing in on them from behind. The outsider led them to the opposite end of the corridor and stopped abruptly in front of another door. This one leads to the roof, he whispered urgently. We can't go down, they'll be waiting for us in the front. The weight of their decision hung in the air. She glanced back toward the hallway, panic clawing at her. "Trust him," the man muttered, raising a brow, his grip tightening on her arm reassuringly. "We need to take the risk." The girl steeled herself. "Okay. Let us do it." The stranger nodded, yanking the door open. A gust of night air rushed in, tousling her hair. They spilled out onto the roof, the sprawling city beneath them glittering like a sea of stars. Suddenly, a shrill whistle rang out through the night. It was a warning someone had spotted them. She turned to see figures spilling out of the door they'd just vacated, a few yards away. Her heart thundered, panic renewing. "Over there. We can climb down the fire escape," he shouted, pointing to the exposed metal structure clinging to the side of the building. Without hesitating, they took off, sprinting to the ledge just as a commotion erupted behind them. Shouts rang out, angry and frantic, as the men bolted through the doorway. She could feel the heat of their pursuit, every second stretching into an eternity. "Go! I'll cover you!" The man beside her yelled, positioning himself between her and the oncoming threat. "No! I won't leave you!" She screamed, fear sparking through her veins. "Just trust me," he insisted, desperation thick in his voice. Before she could argue more, he shoved her toward the fire escape. She raced down, heart pounding, glancing back to catch a fleeting image of him facing off against their pursuers, an act of courage that sent chills down her spine. Each rung she descended felt like a mile, as her mind screamed at her to hurry. She hit the ground, knees buckling slightly, and darted toward an alley, pulling shadows around herself. Just then, a sobering thought crossed her mind. What if he didn't make it? She clenched her fists, a torrent of emotion battering at her heart. An explosion of sound erupted from the building above, the scuffling and shouting crescendoing to chaos. She had to know what happened, she needed to help him. But just as she turned to run back, the fleeting flutter of a paper caught her attention. A small filing slipped out from the edge of her sleeve, moving like a ghost in the air. She snatched it up, confusion hitting her. As she unfolded it, the words were blurry with adrenaline, but the name at the top sent nausea roiling in her stomach. It was tied to Mr. Way's empire, and it seemed like a list of names. Potential allies. Could this be the evidence she needed? Standing in the shadows, she faced a choice: run for safety or dive deeper into the storm. Each moment stretched painfully, and the weight of her role settled heavy in her chest. If she had to go back for him, she'd need a plan, or she may just be putting herself in the crosshairs of danger again. A sharp crack echoed from behind her, cold and resonant, pulling her back to reality. Whatever this push was toward the truth, it had begun. Which path would she choose? She felt it again, the unmistakable pulse of energy, the storm brewing in the depths, pulling her closer. But would she surrender to the chaos or fight back? The weight of the fragile paper burned in her hands, a stark reminder of the peril surrounding her. She could almost feel the dark tendrils of Way's empire reaching for her, whispering threats in the night. Her heart raced as she glanced back toward the towering structure, where chaos erupted, smoke swirling like a curtain of uncertainty. She huddled in the alley's shadows, shadows that felt like a cloak yet offered little comfort. Was he still fighting? Did he escape? The last image of him, the defiance in his stance, flashed through her mind, moments before all hell broke loose. Each heartbeat echoed louder than the chaos from above, her breaths shallow, raw with anxiety. She cast one more look at the building, then furiously wiped tears that threatened to spill, refusing to let despair claim her. They need the list, she murmured to herself. It could save him, or at least give me a fighting chance. The thought sparked something within her, a flicker of determination against the overwhelming dread. Cautiously, she edged out of the shadows, clutching the paper like it was a lifeline. The alley was dark, but faint light escaped from a few blocks away, where a diner buzzed with the clatter of late-night patrons. She hesitated. Each choice now felt monumental. And then, a voice cried out in the distance. Rushing footsteps, more shouts piercing the air. A familiar pang of fear washed over her. They were coming. Panic surged, forcing her to act. She turned, intent on slipping away further into the maze-like streets, but the alley was a trap. It wove left, then right, the heat of pursuit creeping ever closer. She could feel their presence like a chill on her skin. Shuffling through shadow and darkness, her mind raced through options. The list was a beacon. She had to connect with someone, anyone, who could help. Suddenly, she spotted a door ajar just ahead. The faded sign above it read Bobby's Auto Repair. In a split second, she ducked inside, heart pounding with each crunch of gravel beneath her feet. The guts of the garage sprawled out before her tools, mangled cars, the scent of gasoline tangy in the air. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice mingling with the mechanical hum of half-broken machines. Silence shrouded the room, heavy and expectant. Just as dread settled in, a figure emerged from the shadows, a grizzled mechanic with grease-streaked skin and kind eyes. He looked startled but not unkind. "What's wrong, kid?" His brow furrowed with concern. She hesitated, weighing her words. "I need help. They're after me. I found something, a list. I think it could stop him." His expression hardened. "Yes, men? You're in deep trouble. I know. But if I don't do something now," she knotted her fists, desperation flooding her voice. "I can't let him win." With a glance toward the door, he stepped closer. "You think it's safe here? They'll scour every inch looking for you." Before she could respond, the unmistakable sound of running feet thundered from the street. Her heart sank. Time was not on her side. "Get behind the counter, now," he urged, the urgency in his voice cutting through her panic. She launched herself behind the heavy steel counter as he moved to block the door, posture tense. She could hear the muffled voices outside growing louder, more frantic, demanding answers. Her breath hitched, every fiber of her being screaming for escape, yet pinned down by the fear of discovery. Then came the unmistakable sound of a fist banging against the door, a harsh crack that echoed through the garage like a thunderclap. "Bobby! You in there?" A voice barked. With that, the gravity of her situation hit harder than any blow. They were closing in fast, and she could feel the walls creeping closer. If they got in, there would be no way out. As the door shook under the force of yet another brutal strike, she risked a glance back at Bobby, whose face revealed determination mingled with fear. Together, they shared a moment of understanding, two unlikely allies poised at the edge of a storm. The choice loomed before them: would they fight back, or would they be swept away? Just as the door splintered, she locked eyes with him, their fates intertwining in that heartbeat of time. "Let us do this," she whispered, knowing the next moment could seal their fate. But would they stand their ground against the rising tide of darkness? Before she could think further, a crashing sound erupted for the second time, and the door gave way. "Get ready!" Bobby shouted as the world erupted into chaos. Would this be their stand or the start of their end? The door burst open with a splintering crack, and the first shadowy figure slipped inside, silhouetted by the flickering neon light from the street. Heart pounding, she held her breath, desperately wishing every ounce of her being could disappear into nothingness. "Check the back," the man commanded, his voice a harsh growl that reverberated against the metal walls. Bobby's jaw clenched as he stepped forward defensively, positioning himself like a stout oak against the encroaching storm. "Stay behind me," he hissed, the tension crackling in the air like static before a lightning strike. Her mind raced. She needed to think, fast. But there was no time. As the second figure followed the first into the garage, her heart sank. They were here for her. The weight of the list in her pocket felt like a ticking bomb. It could protect her, but only if she made the right moves. The two men exchanged quick glances, confirming their grim mission, eyes darting toward the counter where she crouched. She could hear their breaths harsh, too close. This was it. This was her moment to act, the tension broke as the first man lunged forward toward Bobby, the glint of something sharp in his hand. In that split second, she surged from behind the counter, adrenaline powering her body into action. "Bobby, run!" she screamed, her voice piercing through the chaos. The mechanic's eyes widened, just a moment before he dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike aimed at him. She had no plan, she simply reacted, grabbing a wrench from the nearest toolbox and swinging it with all her strength. It connected with the second man's shoulder, but the force of the blow coursed through her arms like a shock, knocking him off balance. He stumbled, cursing, and she seized the moment, shoving him hard with all her weight. He crashed into a stack of tires, the dull thud echoing in her ears, igniting the fire within her. "Get the door!" Bobby shouted, momentarily distracted by the chaos. He grappled with the first attacker, their bodies tangling in a brutal dance of rage and survival. She glanced around, her eyes scanning the cluttered workshop, searching for anything more she could use. Adrenaline coursing through her veins, she turned back toward Bobby and the scuffle. Was she really going to let them win? The thought twisted her gut even more than the violence unfolding in front of her. "Bobby, I can't," but the words stalled. The first man managed to shove Bobby off, sending the mechanic skidding across the floor. She froze as the attacker closed in, eyes burning with malice, and then it was the other man back on his feet, fury painted across his face as he lunged for her. "Stop! Don't!" The shout fell from her lips as instinct took over again. She hurled the wrench toward him. It hit his leg with a satisfying thud, just as Bobby lunged, grabbing a metal pipe that had rolled nearby. Chaos reigned, voices clashed, fists flew, and blood roared in her ears. They fought like the memories of their loved ones propelled them. Bobby's grit met the intruder's ferocity, and in this fray, they didn't just fight for themselves, they battled for every breath the other would take. Yet in all the bedlam, a chilling realization churned in her stomach: fighting wasn't enough. They needed a way out. "To the back!" she yelled, her voice fierce enough to cut through the din. "We can escape through the garage door." She dashed toward the corridor leading deeper into the shop, fear driving her forward. Bobby hesitated, casting a glance back. "You think it'll be safer? It's our only shot." Tears pricked her eyes. She couldn't bear to lose him now, not when they had come this far. With a reluctant nod, Bobby followed her as they both sprinted toward the darkness of the back. She could hear footsteps pounding after them, faster now, determination evident from the attacker's snarls. Whatever lay ahead, they had to risk it all. But as they reached the door at the end of the hall, she hesitated. It was locked. "Help me!" she cried, panic clawing at her throat. Bobby's hands moved swiftly over the bolt, urgency blasting in the sweat on his forehead. But time was running out. The door splintered as a fist hammered against it, unyielding and relentless. Their pursuers were driven by anger, and she could feel the thudding footsteps growing louder. In that instant, she caught her breath, hoping the list would mean salvation, not just for them, but for everyone entangled in Way's web. But could they escape before they were engulfed in darkness? Would the next moment seal their fates? "Almost there, just hold on," Bobby shouted, determination flaring in his eyes. But then, she heard something, a voice emerging from the shadows, a figure stepping into the faint light. As dread snaked its way back into her gut, she felt her heart drop, teetering on the brink of disbelief. Who was here now, and could they save them, or would the night swallow them whole? The figure stepped closer, revealing a face she never expected to see: Frankie. Not just any Frankie, but the Frankie she hadn't seen since high school. The familiar features twisted into an expression of disbelief. His eyes flicked between her and Bobby, then darted back at the door. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered urgently, fear lacing his voice. "Frankie!" she gasped, feeling a mix of relief and confusion flood through her. "We're in trouble. They're coming for us. We need to move." Bobby glanced at her, confusion mixing with urgency. "If he's here to help, then let us get out." But before they could plan, a bone-shaking thud vibrated through the door. She could barely breathe, not knowing if Frankie would be an ally or a liability. He was always a good guy, but how could he help now? "Listen to me," Frankie said, urgency sharpening his voice. "I saw them. They're looking for you. We don't have a lot of time." Before she could respond, another blow against the door rattled her bones, echoing like a death knell. Time was not on their side. "What do we do?" she pressed, desperation tinging her words. "Follow me." Frankie dashed back into the shadows, gesturing for them to follow. She exchanged a quick glance with Bobby, whose determination was mixed with uncertainty. But they didn't have the luxury to second-guess now. With a rapid nod, they took off after him, the corridor stretching dark and ominous ahead. The garage's rear way opened up into a narrow service alley. Flickering overhead lights cast ominous shadows, and the scents of oil and gasoline mixed with the night air. The alley felt like a labyrinth, one she hoped would guide them away from danger. "Keep moving," Frankie urged, glancing over his shoulder. "They'll be behind us in seconds." As they dashed down the alley, she listened for the telltale sounds of pursuit, heavy breathing or slapping footsteps, but it was lost amidst the echo of their frantic heartbeats. She pushed herself faster, fear anchoring her feet but adrenaline propelling her forward. Then Frankie stopped suddenly, scanning the area. There's a car parked around the corner. "We can take it," he whispered urgently. "Are you sure about this?" Bobby questioned, the edge of doubt creeping into his tone. "Gotta be better than waiting here," Frankie replied, determination hardening his jaw. "Get ready." They rounded the corner to see an old sedan, looking more like junk than transportation. But in their moment of desperation, anything would do. Frankie yanked open the door while Bobby stalked around to the driver's side. "Get in," he barked, urgency tight in his voice. She slid into the back seat, and panic gripped her tighter as she heard the footsteps growing closer. It felt like a countdown to disaster. "Go, go," she shouted as Bobby fumbled with the ignition, hands sweating. It roared to life, sputtering asthma-like, but it was running. As Bobby swung the car into gear, relief flooded her for a split second until a crack echoed through the air. A bullet whizzed past the window, hitting the door frame with a deafening clang. Frankie cursed, ducking low. "Drive. Just drive." Bobby slammed his foot on the gas, the tires screeching as they shot down the alley. She clutched the seat, heart hammering in her chest. The danger was not over yet. "Did you see their faces?" Bobby panted, cutting through the darkness. "Who were those guys?" "They're after something I have," she answered, dread pooling in her stomach. "And if they find us suddenly," the car shook as another shot fired, the sound of metal splintering through the night. Panic rose visibly in Frankie's eyes. "We need to lose them. Now." The high-stakes game was far from over, but they couldn't just run. They had to outsmart their pursuers. The question burned in her mind: did the list have the power to save them, or would its secrets only drag them deeper into the abyss? As Bobby jerked the wheel, sending the car into a narrow alleyway, the muffled sound of an engine grew closer. The night swallowed their frantic escape, but as they fled, she felt the weight of something much darker loom ahead. "What are we going to do when we lose them?" she mused aloud, fear creeping into her voice. Frankie's gaze hardened. "We fight. We figure out what's so important about that list." Just as she opened her mouth to reply, a blinding light flooded the cabin, followed by the unmistakable screech of tires behind them. The weight of fate was closing in, and the next moment would determine whether they survived the night or fell victim to the darkness. What would her choice be? Would the list bind them together in victory or tear them apart in failure? The adrenaline rushed through the girl's veins as Bobby swerved the old sedan around a corner, her thoughts screaming for answers while the chaos of the night loomed like a black cloud. The weight of the list pressed in her pocket, a relentless reminder that they were fighting for more than just their lives. They needed to uncover the truth and vanquish Mr. Way's darkness once and for all. Behind them, she heard the roar of engines, the sound closing in like a predator stalking its prey. "What's our plan?" she shouted, her voice steady despite the whirlpool of anxiety swirling inside her. Frankie glanced toward the rearview mirror, eyes narrowing. "We need to get somewhere safe. Somewhere we can figure this out." Bobby took another corner sharply, tires squealing against the asphalt. "You're sure this list is worth it?" he asked, his focus unwavering on the road. "What are we even up against? It has names people connected to Way. Allies, enemies, or even those who might help us. If we can expose him, we might save others from his grasp," she said, her conviction strengthening her voice. A sharp turn brought them into a hidden street that quickly dropped off into a narrow alley, giving her just a fleeting hope of escape. With every rev of the engine, she could almost feel the weight of Mr. Way's empire pressing down like a heavy blanket. "Keep an eye on the exits, Frankie," Bobby instructed, eyes darting around. "We need to get out of sight." She felt the dread creeping back in, sensing their pursuers closing in like a vice. "How do we keep them from finding us?" Frankie turned to her, determination glinting in his gaze. "We give them a reason to pursue something else. We use the list to draw them in while we hide." "Hide?" Bobby echoed, his brows furrowing. "Where?" "We can only keep running. There's south an old warehouse close by, a place my uncle owned. He used to store junk there. It's not on any maps and hardly anyone knows about it anymore. We can lay low," Frankie suggested, her heart raced, the thought of having a plan igniting a flicker of hope within her. "Let us move then." Bobby hit the gas, sending them careening deeper into the maze of the city. She glanced over her shoulder, the shadows of their would-be captors closing in like tendrils of the night. At last, they reached the warehouse, a dilapidated structure hewn from weathered bricks, overgrown vines scaling its walls like an iron grip. Bobby parked behind it, and they climbed out, hearts pounding with the weight of urgency. The air was thick, and she could feel the pulse of danger lurking nearby. "Let us hurry," Frankie urged, motioning them toward the side entrance. "We'll find a place to hide until we can think of something." Inside, the scent of dust and rust engulfed them, memories of a past forgotten still clinging to the shadows. They pressed forward into the darkness, searching for a secure corner while the echo of distant footsteps grew louder outside. "Is it safe?" Bobby whispered, panic flickering in his eyes. "It has to be," she replied, pushing aside scattered boxes to create a makeshift barricade. They settled against the cold wall, breaths heavy in the stillness. The air felt electric, tension woven tight like a drum, as she pulled the list from her pocket. She spread it out under the dim light, swallowing hard as she read the names. A list of allies, a network connected to Way that could either help them or seal their fate. "This might be our way in," she murmured, her heart racing. The buzzing sounds of her phone cut through the silence, and she startled at the noise. "What if they can track us? Is it safe to use?" Bobby's voice quivered. "I don't care. I need to reach out to someone," she decided, tapping a familiar contact, an investigative journalist they had met in passing years back. If anyone could help amplify their message, it was him. As she sent the message, dread clawed at her. Would he believe them? Or would this be the end of their fight? Just then, the heavy sound of a door creaking brought them all to a frozen halt. The truth behind their pursuers had arrived. "Did you hear that?" Frankie hushed, eyes wide, as adrenaline shot through her veins like a live wire. Bobby crouched low, readying himself, muscles tense as the door swung open, revealing shadows caught between the flickering light, and there he was. Damar. Way's silhouette darkened the threshold, eyes gleaming with menace, a predator savoring the scent of fear. "You thought you could hide from me?" His voice coiled with rage, a harbinger of chaos. She felt the room close in, each second dragging ragged and heavy, but somewhere deep inside, anger ignited her spirit. This was the moment they had prepared for, the very confrontation she had hoped for. "We're not afraid of you," she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "Brave words from a cornered rat," he replied, his smile cold. "Do you think you found something powerful? You're out of your league." She exchanged a glance with Bobby and Frankie, a shared resolve tightening their connection. The battle was nowhere close to over, embers of defiance flickered brightly in the thick air. "Let us expose you for what you really are," she said, determination flaring with each heartbeat. "Your empire will crumble under the weight of the truth." Laughter echoed in the darkness, but she stood firm, ready to face the storm brewing within Wei. This was bigger than survival, it was about liberation, about hope against despair. Together, they would uncover the truth whatever the cost. In that heart-stopping moment, the shadows oscillated between fear and hope, but as the struggle began, she felt alive with the possibilities of breaking free. As she grasped the list, she turned to her friends with fierce conviction. "It's time to fight." And they surged forward as one, ready to reclaim not just their lives but reveal the dance of truth hidden within the deceit. This was their stand, a final confrontation laden with chaos and brilliance, a reckoning that echoed into the night like a battle cry. As the struggle for the truth ignited, she vowed that they would emerge victorious, defying the shadows that sought to claim them. They had each other, and in that bond lay the power to change everything. Whether it was escape, confrontation, or illumination, the story would not end here. This was just the beginning. Now it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss any of the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the channel. And flood the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about what just happened. Did you think they would confront Mr. Wei tonight? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to join this adventure. Your support is what keeps us going, and we can't wait to see you back for more exciting tales.